I am the Social Student Involvement Coordinator for ASG, and for those of you who don't know what that stands for, it's the Associate Student Government. I am currently a bio major here at COC. It's going to be my second year, and my future plans are to transfer to a four-year university and later attend dental school to become an orthodontist.
Hey everyone, my name is Kayla, and I'm also the Social Student Involvement Coordinator for the ASG. I am currently a pre-nursing major, and my plans are to obtain an associate's degree and then transfer to earn my bachelor's degree and hopefully work in pediatrics or the ICU. Now let's get this event started.
Well, we'd like to welcome you all to our event, our Professor's Perspective event. Thank you all for coming. Today we have some wonderful professors that are here to speak to you about their university experience and hopefully provide some insight into the colleges that you've heard about or interested in attending.
So we'll first start off with my professor, Professor Silva, who attended CSUN and UCLA.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. I'm Ambika Silva. I teach math. In particular, I mainly teach statistics. I went to COC, so I was in the shoes of a lot of you, getting ready to feel like, what do I need to do to transfer? From COC, I went to UCLA for my undergraduate, and I got my bachelor's in math. And I did my master's degree at CSUN after that, which was also in math, and that one was applied math. The transition from college to high school to four-year, from high school to the COC realm was a little bit, it was similar, but it was like, oh, this is college, and they expect you to do a little bit more independent. And then going to a four-year was a little bit of a culture shock, because I loved it because it was so grand, especially UCLA campus is beautiful, of course. But it was a little bit like, whoa, I felt like a little fish in a big pond. So it was definitely different, but a rewarding experience.
Thank you, Professor Silva. That was really great to hear about. I think now we'll move on to Professor Foley, who attended University of Nebraska and Cornell.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I'm Professor Foley. I teach chemistry. So at COC, I mostly am teaching Gen Chem 1 and Gen Chem 2, but I've taught the other classes too. I grew up in Nebraska, so that's why I went to the University of Nebraska, because that was my local state school. But after that, well, let me just talk about my majors. So when I started at Nebraska, I was a biology major, but then shortly after that, I decided I liked chemistry. So I switched to biochemistry. About a year in, I decided I also really liked math. So then I added biochemical engineering to my majors. So I ended my bachelor's with 2 different degrees, biochemistry and biosystems engineering. And then I went to grad school at Cornell, and I went in chemical engineering. And then after I finished chemical engineering, I was studying RNA degradation in bacteria. I went to NYU Med and did a postdoctoral degree in structural biology. So I'm telling you all these different degrees because I want you to know that it seems like you have to make a lot of lifelong decisions at the very beginning of your college career, but it turns out you don't really. You can switch your majors as you go on, and you learn skills along the way. Is that it? I think that's all I had to say at this point. I'll talk more later.
Thank you, Professor Foley. Next up, we have Professor Cude, who attended UC Davis and the University of Washington. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for allowing me to have this chance to talk about my experience. I don't know if you guys have the slides that I had, the pictures of UC Davis, or if we do that now or if we do that later in the breakout rooms. But my story is that I started at community college because a couple of reasons. One, money is tight. I had 3 brothers, so my family can't just come up and say, hey, here's $40,000, go wherever you want. And then 2, I think I wasn't fully decided on what I was going to do for my major, and going to a community college, having the opportunity to take lots of different classes and kind of feel my way around that. really worked out. When it came to transferring after I did my 3 years, yes, 3, it did not take 2 at community college to get all of my prereqs done. I then took about myself to start traveling to different campuses to figure out where would be a best fit for me. And I ended up choosing UC Davis. I have some pictures here that I'm showing you of the campus and just campus life, because it really just settled in well with me. It was this beautiful campus. It had lots of greenery, lots of trees. Everybody was so friendly. I've never met a person that went to UC Davis that doesn't say, I just absolutely loved it there. There's a real sense of community because it's a small town. There are more bikes than cars in the town of Davis. As you can see, they have a weekly farmers market where they have live music. It's just a wonderful community, really exciting different architecture there. I actually also chose it because of a major, so it's not just because it's pretty, but because of the University of California system, the UCs. It was the only school that had a genetics major. And I was totally convinced after my community college experience that genetics was the future of medicine. I thought I was pre-med at the time. I was actually thinking, do all my pre-med classes, take a gap year to prepare for the MCAT, apply, and it turns out I have a super strong fear of blood. So that was after fainting several times in surgeries and in other medical experiences, I had to change my degree to doing a PhD in cancer biology. And I did that at the University of Washington in Seattle. So let's see if I've got all my questions. My major, what I teach. Okay, so at College of the Canyons, I teach biology, and I teach the majors biology predominantly. So that would be Bio 107 and 240. And then I also teach for fun biology of cancer, which is, there's no prereqs, and it's a 3-unit non-lab class. We have a lot of fun in that class. And then also what clubs. So I really am a strong believer that you have to have a work-life balance in college. When you transfer, it's going to be such a different experience. You're going to be in upper division classes. You're going to be in there with people who are all excelling in the area that you've chosen, and it can be a little bit stressful. Maybe you're moving from semester to quarter system. Maybe you are taking more units than you normally would. And so I think it's important to find a work-life balance. For me, I was on the collegiate swim team. I did intramural volleyball team. I played in the marching band, the symphony. I traveled with the marching band to every single football. I think I lost service. Did I lose signal?
No, we can still hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm talking to myself over here. But because I was part of the marching band, which I know what you guys are thinking, it was amazing. It was an immediate family of 200 people. And we got to travel to every football game around the country, you know, Yale. We went to Philadelphia. We went all over the state. We went to every basketball game, every soccer match, every volleyball match. So you got to have that real sense of team and college pride, which I thought was amazing. And so I think find a college that not only has the academics that you're looking for, but also has those other life elements that are going to complete your entire college experience.
Wow, thank you so much, Professor Cude. That was amazing. Now our last professor, Professor Phil, if you would like to present. Professor Phil attended UCLA and he also taught at Pepperdine.
Hi there, everybody. I worry a little bit because I think that what you're going to find is that my story probably isn't relevant to most of you, but I think that there are maybe some lessons to be gleaned in this. So I did my undergraduate work at Cal State Northridge and then at Humboldt State University. And I left the academia school for a while. I got, for a variety of personal reasons that there's no need to get into, I had to get a job. And so I wound up getting a job as a plumber. And I worked as a plumber for about 13 years. And eventually I decided that I did not want to do that the rest of my life. I had always wanted to teach. And so I sold my business and I applied to UCLA. What, wrong side? Oh, where are we? Oh, there we go. I applied to UCLA and they turned me down. And I was like, oh no, what do I do now? They turned me down. This was my only plan, was to go to UCLA. And they were concerned that I'd been out of school for a long time and they wanted me to demonstrate that I still had what was needed to be successful. So I enrolled at Cal State Northridge and got a master's degree in political science. And I reapplied and they accepted me the second time. This is part of what I think it was Professor Foley was saying about this idea that you have to make decisions like right now and everything just hinges on you knowing exactly what you want to do right now. You don't. I was 38 years old when I went back to school. You have plenty of time to sort of explore what's going on. So eventually I got my PhD from UCLA. I taught at UCLA for 2 years, taught at Pepperdine for 2 years, taught at UCLA again for 2 years, and then I came back. So I teach political science now, and I had the same feeling walking onto the campus at UCLA. Every single time I walked on there, it was like, I can't believe I'm here. It was like a miracle that somehow I had managed to do this. And that was as a student and as a professor. I would just walk on like, wow, this is amazing. So I teach political science. Mostly I teach Introduction to American Government. That's like the main course. I also teach, for the first time, I taught a class on globalization this semester. And I also teach a class called the Model United Nations that is more of an academic competition. Now, as a student, I didn't participate in any academic clubs. I got married way too young. I had a family to take care of. But one of the things that I've realized as the faculty advisor for the Model Nations Club and the faculty advisor for the Political Science Club is, and this was another professor mentioned this already. Oh, I think Professor Cude mentioned this. I've seen the way these kinds of activities are so enriching for students because they connect you with people who have common interests. It connects you to the campus. And one of the things that I've heard is that when colleges are looking for who they're going to accept and not accept, that participation in extracurricular activities, being involved in clubs, being an advisor in a club, is a better predictor of success at a four-year institution than grade point average. So they're looking for people, they're looking for students who not only do good work and who are not only active, you know, and have high grades, but who connected with the student body around them and the campus around them. And so I would encourage everybody who isn't already in a club to consider doing it. And I think that's it for me for now.
Thank you so much, Professor Phil. Like that was a lot of information. That was very good, especially for me. Like to all the professors, thank you for sharing. I love to hear other people's perspective on like their university life and how they got there, and that was amazing. Thank you so much. Now we'll move on to asking questions to each one of you. Kayla?
So, Professor Foley, we were wondering, do you have any advice on what to do or not to do when moving to a university?
I'm unmuted, right?
Yes.
So I thought about this for a little while, and I think the best advice that I can give you is that you need, and this kind of plays off of what Phil just said, you need to find your own space in your own community. So a lot of students come into college and expect that if they pass their classes, at the end of passing their classes, they will have a job that's kind of waiting for them, right? But being a part of the college community and participating in things outside of your classes and meeting people and forming relationships with mentors and with other students is really important for your college success. Partially because it gives you, when you're writing applications, it gives you something to write about, right? Something to feel passionate about, but also because it helps you figure out what you want at the end, right? So I joined a couple clubs early on when I was in college, and I ended up realizing that those people weren't they weren't the same as me, or I didn't feel comfortable in that space. And so I joined other clubs, and I found out that those were that's part of what led me to go into engineering, because I felt like I had more in common with the students and the faculty in those clubs than in other clubs. So my major do would be early on when you transfer out, find some group, find some space that is your space beyond just your classes. Find a place where you can be you and you can be unique. And then the don't that I came up with was, I'm a first generation college student. So I come from a big family. There's 7 kids in my family. I'm the second oldest. So when I was going to college, there wasn't really anybody in front of me. My sister was older than me by a year, so she also went to college, but nobody had proven successful at the time when I went to college. And I wasn't really encouraged to go to college. My family didn't really see the value of going to college. So what that led to was a lot of negative feelings, like I'm kind of being selfish. I am doing this for myself, but not for my family. And they're all back at home and they're struggling to make ends meet. And I'm trying to take, what I can and go, instead of working, I'm going to college. But in retrospect, I think me going to college set such a strong example that by the time my youngest brother, he's 15 years younger than me, but by the time he graduated from high school, it wasn't a surprise that he went to college. It was an expectation that he went to college. So I had changed the whole kind of trajectory of my family. Everybody went to college. So if you are first generation and if you are older, keep in mind that you're setting an example of what you can do and what your family can do when you go to college. So don't get discouraged, I guess is the don't.
Thank you so much, Professor, for sharing that. I know that I had to also go through different, different clubs to experience what fits right with me and what doesn't. And definitely I'm not first gen, but I completely understand that education is important and definitely something that we should go through. Thank you.
Thank you. That was actually really inspirational, because I'm also first gen and I totally understand what you went through. And as for Professor Silva, what is something you wish you knew before attending a university?
So there's a couple things that came to mind when I got this question. And the first is, I wish that I had been more active. A lot of people have talked about the clubs and being more active, and I really didn't, because I commuted to UCLA. I grew up in Santa Clarita. I went to COC. You can see from what I went to, it was very geographically close, so I commuted to save for financial reasons so I can live with my parents still. So as such, I didn't get to be as involved with UCLA. Now that's a personal choice. I'm totally fine with that, because I had not a lot of bills coming out of my degree, so I felt it was worth it. But just know what you want out of it. The other thing is that, actually I have 3. I can't count math, 3 things. The second thing is that make sure that I saw a counselor. I wish I could tell myself to go see a counselor yearly. And I tell my students that now as well. 2 examples. One, when I was at COC, I had been accepted to UCLA, but they had said, oh, but you're missing this one class, which, sorry, Phil Gussin, it was a poli-sci class, I think, and I had to take it over summer, and I had to get a certain grade in it, so that, I could, my thing was tentatively through UCLA that I would get accepted, so I had to do that. Had I talked to a counselor, I would have already been clear, everything would have been in line. Did I learn my lesson in UCLA? No, I didn't see a counselor either. And so my last semester or quarter for UCLA, I finally said, you know what, I should go see a counselor. And they were like, yeah, you're going to be 1 unit short. And I was like, oh, well, I don't want to go through a whole nother quarter, so I started scrambling to see what I can do for a 1 unit. And luckily I was able to do something as a solo project with an instructor. But that again, like I didn't learn my lesson to do that. And in fact, my husband, who is the other Professor Silva, who I met at COC as a student, so you never know who you meet at COC, but he went to UCLA as well, and he did the same. We had the same problem. We didn't see a counselor, and he ended up taking like a bunch of units in his last quarter so that we can finish together. So see a counselor, because it's important to make sure you're staying on track. The other thing that I had was, I talked in my first intro that I felt like a little fish in a big pond. Coming from COC, I was a TLC tutor. I was like one of the top math people there. And then I went to UCLA and I'm surrounded by really wonderfully smart people, but I was surrounded by really, really smart people. And not that I wasn't, but I felt more intimidated because I was, everyone was as smart as I was. I felt like, oh my gosh, everyone's like me then. So even though I excelled at my major, it was intimidating. And then I didn't realize like within myself what I wanted. And so I would say, like, for instance, UCLA is an R1 school. And if you don't know what an R1 school is, neither did I at the time. And so R1 is a research university where they primarily focus on research, and a lot of the big universities are like that. And so sometimes my instructors were not as focused on teaching as, say, like my College of the Canyons instructors were, because they were more focused on research, which is, again, brilliant instructors. And some of the instructors were really wonderful, but I did have to get accustomed to a variety of different professors. So that was interesting. So if you don't want certain things, like with a big school, little school, a research school, or more focused on classrooms, just kind of know what you want before you start applying. I went to UCLA because I'm like, the name and its prestige, and it's a beautiful campus, and it was close. And I don't regret any of my choices, but it's something that I, should have thought about maybe a little bit more, because I hadn't really thought about it.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Silva. That was good. Good advice. I'll definitely see a counselor after this.
Yeah, me too. I definitely will have to make an appointment soon. So Professor Cude, let's move on to you. What was your favorite part of the university life?
So this question is an amazing question, because I could talk for 5 hours, but I'm going to try to limit myself to a couple of minutes. I would say that when I was a community college student, I was really focused on get all my math and science. And if you're a science major, you know what that means. It means like 18 units a semester, because you're taking chemistry lab and physics lab, and you're taking calculus, and you're taking biology. And I was also working 3 jobs, trying to help support my family. And so to me, it was like, go to school, do your work, go to your job, go home, study. And I didn't develop very many close relationships with students. I mean, I have good relationships with my professors, who I still send Christmas cards to, and we still talk. I'm not going to tell you how many years later, you can guess. But when I transferred, all of a sudden I'm in classes that are my major, like my passion, what I really love to study. And I'm in there with 70 other people who are just like me. It was so amazing that I didn't have to make excuses like, no, I can't go out party tonight because I need to study. They'd be like, oh yeah, me too. Like, it was like, oh, you get it. You understand. You have like the same priorities as me. You watch the same things on TV. We can get together. We can chat. We can share ideas. And I also think when you move away from home, which a lot of you, when you go to university, are going to move away, it is your first time to figure out who you are. you start to become independent. You start to form more your own opinions, your own ideas, your own political affiliations, because you're removed a little bit from your family. And maybe that's kind of what you've grown up with and that's what you've embedded into yourself. And I really loved that exploration. I mean, it was like the first time I joined protests. It was the first time you know, I did like a road trip. It was just, you form these relationships, you find out who you are, you figure out your passions, and you learn how to follow your heart, which I really love that. And I'm still close friends with a lot of people that I went to university with. And I really cherish those friendships.
Thank you, Professor. I know that I was like, I need to unmute myself. Yeah, I know that I had to go through the same thing like first year, because right now I'm a junior and I went somewhere else during my first year, but definitely had to go through like all those experiences, finding who I am, even though I don't know right now entirely. But yeah, I had to go through all of that, but thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes, thank you so much, because I experienced the same thing. My first year of college, well, university, I went to UC Davis as well, and it was a pretty rough experience because I had to find myself as well, but that's another story to tell. So Professor Gussin, what was the most memorable experience you had?
Okay. Because of my age, that was a long time ago. So I was thinking about it in terms of my experience as a professor. So I'm actually gonna talk about my experience as a professor, if you don't mind. It's gonna sound like I'm being totally arrogant, but I promise I'll bring it back around to something that will hopefully be useful. When I mean, just getting a job at UCLA was cool, but when I moved over to Pepperdine, it was very exciting. And one of my favorite things was a student athlete on the women's basketball team. Apparently, they'd make an honorary coach, and so I got to sit down on the floor with the girls' basketball team for a game. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. So that was kind of cool. And then when I went back to UCLA, my last semester, everybody knew that I'd been hired and that I was going to be leaving. I was going to be going to COC. And every year they do something called the My Last Lecture Award. It's the award given to the most inspirational professor at UCLA. And I won that award. I got to give a lecture in front of like hundreds of people, you know, and I could talk about the whole thing was, if you had one last lecture to give, what would it be on? And so I just talked about my life. I figured, you know, if I had one last lecture to give, I would just talk about me. So that's what I did. And it gave me a chance to like thank my wife and thank my kids and for some professors who were really inspirational to me. And then I got hired at COC. And as I said before, I'm the faculty advisor for, I think I mentioned, the Model United Nations team. And by far, in my career, being the faculty advisor for the Model United Nations team is the most rewarding thing I have ever done. I love the students at COC. I love to see them challenge and grow. And it's been, I don't even know if I had to rank what was second. I don't even know what I would pick as second most memorable thing. This is the teaching here at COC. This is the most memorable thing. And so what I would say is looking back at my career as a plumber, and then when I was at UCLA, the R1 university, right, there was a path for me to pursue that as a career. But I didn't do that because that's not where my heart was. My heart was in teaching. And I knew I was going to be able to teach at COC, that's what the focus was going to be. One of the amazing things about the faculty here is that they're all committed to just teaching and being really good at what they do. And so for me, the Model United Nations team, working with that has been my most memorable experience. Again, as a student, it was just so long ago. I don't remember very much other than, you know, other than at UCLA, like, but I was in the graduate program, so it was very different. So I don't know if that's useful to anybody. Just so I apologize if that's not particularly helpful to people who are trying to figure out what to do.
It was definitely helpful, Professor. We do have one question from one of the students to all professors. As graduates from the major colleges, do you feel as if going to these colleges opened you more opportunities than it would have if you went to one that isn't as big?
I can answer that, I think. So from my perspective, I'm the person who believes very strongly that you should go to the school that is the best fit for you, not based on name, not based on prestige, not based on fame, because regardless of where you go, if you are happy there, you are going to be successful because you're going to invest your heart and soul into the clubs, into the campus life, into your classes. I'm somebody that had an intervention twice. Once because for undergrad, I got into Berkeley and I said no to Berkeley. And people are like, what is wrong with you? Why wouldn't you go to Berkeley? And why would you go to the farm? Because Davis is called the farm. And I visited both and that was my choice. In graduate school, again, I got into MIT and I got into Princeton. And I said no, and I chose to go to University of Washington. Everyone's looking at me like, are you just throwing your career away? You're never going to be successful. And I said, I might not be your definition of successful, but I'll be happy. And if I'm happy, I'm going to be successful in my own life because I'm going to be doing what I love and what I'm passionate about. So I really think that no matter what school you go to, if you choose a place that you love, that has the classes that you want, that you put your whole heart and soul into, you will be successful and it will never count against you in any way. That's all.
Thank you.
And let me, if you don't mind, I want to add a little something to that as well. My daughter is a social worker, licensed clinical social worker. She went to an Ivy League school to get her MSW. And by the time it was over, by the time she was done, although she loved the experience there, she realized that she had spent way more money than she needed to spend because when it went time to go get a job, nobody cared that she'd gone to the University of Pennsylvania. They just cared that she was licensed. And so sometimes I feel like students get drawn to the prestige of a school. That same thing when students don't want to go to a community college because somebody looks down on that. That is just ridiculous. As somebody who taught at UCLA, here's what I can tell you. In political science, if you take a comparative governments class in political science, you will go into a room and there will be 300 people in that room. And the professor, who's in this case, he's a great guy. He'll teach that class and he will not know a single student. And then at one point during the week, you will meet a graduate student, right? With a graduate who will talk to you. But exactly like what Professor Silva said, that graduate student is worrying about their own research. And part of the way they pay the bills is like they have to teach you. So it's like, okay, I'll go and teach a section and then I'll teach you. And so you've got a professor who's like so distant, like physically distant. And it's so scary to go when you know somebody's like been published over and over again, like going to their office hours is scary. You're being taught by a graduate student who really doesn't want to be teaching you. And so people make their choices sometimes not based on what's best for them, but and what fits with their what they want, but based on some weird kind of prestige. Professor Cude is absolutely correct. You make your decision based on what school is best for you, for your interests, and then proceed forward. And if other people don't like your decisions, who cares? Right, exactly. Who cares? Do what's right for you.
Thank you so much, Professor Cude and Professor Phil. That was very inspirational. And thank you, professors, for just sharing some insight on the university life. I definitely needed to hear a lot of that information. Coming from a first-generation student, I can't get that anywhere else, unfortunately. But now I also wanted to share some interesting facts that those of you who are interested in transferring to a four-year this year or in a few years will find interesting. So we're going to present the Transfer Center here at COC. The Transfer Center is an informational center designed to help students who are considering to transfer to a four-year institution. The center has a variety of resources available to provide students with transfer information, and In addition, the center hosts visits by representatives from four-year institutions, for each fall semester, the Transfer Center sponsors Transfer Day, which brings representatives from a variety of public and private four-year colleges and universities into the campus.
So however, this year they're holding a virtual transfer fair. So for the week of October 5 to 9, so next week, some Cal States will be holding live sessions online at various times. So you can visit the canyons.edu/transfer center to learn more about those different Cal State programs. And then the Transfer Center also has Transfer Thursdays, which has Professor Conception Cruz. She helps you with all your transfer stuff and like your applications and everything and what you need to get done. And for more information, you can contact them through a phone number or pop into that Transfer Thursday. And their office hours are Monday through Thursday, 9 through 6 p.m.
And remember that UC applications are due November 30th, and Cal State's applications, I believe, are due December 4th. And now for those of you who are interested in hearing more about personal perspectives from these professors at universities, or just have a couple questions that you weren't able to ask during their presentation, we are going to be placing the professors into their own breakout rooms. And if you would like to join the breakout rooms just to get a one-on-one experience, we can definitely put you into their breakout rooms if you like.